Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. We have another college on the podcast today. We have head coach of University of Denver Gymnastics program, Melissa Kutcher Reinhardt. She has joined the podcast today to kind of talk about her program and talk about the first couple competitions that they had, but also get to know her in a different level. And also to kind of see where they're going in this 2024 season, some of their goals, and get to know a little bit more about the university. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and to leave a comment. Your comments are really important to me to be able to know how to take some of these conversations, things that you would like to know. Hey, Melissa, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So before we kind of get into all of the gymnastics talk and information, I have 3 questions for you. My very first question is, if you could have anybody in the world cook you any meal, who would you have cook you that meal, and what would you request of that person to make you?
Oh, these are good questions. I don't know. I've really never thought about it. I'm gonna, off the top of my head, without much thought, I'm gonna lean toward either my mother or my husband cook me the meal. And what would I like? I love pasta, so that would probably be pretty high on the list, but it'd probably go between pasta and steak.
Yeah. Can you kind of talk about the influence that your mom and your husband have on you? Either is those times that you guys that they'll be making this food, will you guys have great conversations during the time of making those meals, or even just sit down to have a great conversation?
So my mom passed away 2 years ago. My mom was my best friend in the world. So I miss her every day. I think about her every day. I know she's watching over me and my family, and I know she's in a good place. And so I think about her all the time. What would those conversations be like? She just is someone I feel like I can be open and honest with and vulnerable with. And you have to have those people that you really trust, and they care about you and they have your best interest at heart. But she was always motivating to me and really helped me have a sense of belief in myself and told me I can accomplish anything I want. It was really her drive and desire for me to be happy and for me to kind of continue to move forward in my career. So
Yeah. And can you even talk about your connection with your husband? You mentioned him. Is he a good cook? Does he enjoy
yeah.
really cooking? I know as a gymnastics coach, especially now during season, is a busy time. So does he do some of those things?
So we are just recently, I like to say I'm an empty nester, but that's not completely true because we have a Labradoodle and he is going to be 14 years old February 1st. And so, no, we're really not empty nesters because I have to get home to the dog. I have to feed the dog and take the dog out, and I still can't leave. But both my son and daughter have left, and they're in college right now. So, it's kind of actually, just to be honest, nice not having and you have you have a baby and a toddler yourself, so you'll continue to understand this. But one of the most stressful things is what's for dinner, mom? What's for dinner, mom? What's for dinner, mom? Every day for 18 years. So it's kind of nice to be like, hey, what do you want to do for dinner? And
Yeah.
and do you want something formal? Do you want to cook something? Do you want to just wing it with some snacks? And so kind of having a little bit of that flexibility where you're maybe not always worried about your children and they're getting a healthy meal and their nutrition, and making sure that you have that family time and that family meals. But maybe Todd and I, that's my husband Todd, able to wing it just a little bit more now and have a little bit more flexibility with that than we've had in the past. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that leads me into my second question, because I think one thing that goes very good with food is music. So if you could go see anybody live in concert, dead or alive, who would you go see, and who would you take to the concert with you?
Wow, that's also a really great question. I will have to think about these questions. I'm not great at these questions off the top of my head. I was never a huge one of those people who went to concerts all the time, but I really love music. So I think that's actually really funny. I don't know if it was just a time thing. And so I didn't go because of the time or the money or the crowds. I'm not 100% sure, but I really actually love music. So that's pretty interesting. Um, one concert I did see, so this is not answering your question,
Oh,
was
you're good.
U2. And I loved them. I love them. That was while I was in college. So we're talking years and years and years ago. Um, so I've thought about, I know they were in Vegas or currently in Vegas for a while, and thought about, wouldn't it be fun to kind of go see them again? And so I love their music, but I kind of like all music, and I actually like it, um, pending it's clean. I like it when, the athletes are playing music in the gym and they have a variety of different tastes and interests, and so I get to hear a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And the last question kind of talks about traveling a little bit. So again, talking about even music and food, if you go to different areas, you can experience different music, different foods, different cultures. So if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? And what means of transportation would you choose to get there if that wasn't really, even if it doesn't make sense? So if you had to fly somewhere to get there, but you wanted to take a train, you could say that too.
I'll start backwards, answering your questions. Um, I love being places. I don't necessarily love traveling to the places. I'm not sure why. I grew up in Florida and not that far from a beach. And so you think I'd be good with water, but I'm going to say, as I've aged, motion sickness gets the best of me. So I'm probably not taking any kind of cruise.
Yeah.
I probably fly, but I would love to fly supersonic. So I would love to have it be like not a 12-hour flight to get to, somewhere where you want to be, but have it be like kind of right there. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Um, um, so I did travel a little bit myself when I was a gymnast. But just most recently, I'll hit the most recent trip. It was the first time my family and I were able to go to France and Italy. And we just had an incredible time. It was a trip that was years in the making with COVID, that had extended family. And we finally were able to do that this past summer. And in Italy, I would say some of my favorite memories, so this isn't exactly answering your question, was having, my children there, and these meals that are homemade, and so much love and care goes into these meals, and you're there for 3 hours, and it's conversation and connection, and really good wine, and and really good food. So I'm gonna say that, since that's one of my most recent memories, and I just enjoyed that a whole lot.
No, and I think all those three things that we kind of mentioned really connect a lot of people, right? Being able to learn about different people, learning about different cultures, and experiencing different things. And that's what happens a lot of time when you're recruiting. You're recruiting kids from all over the country, even all over the world, and they may have their own backgrounds. And being able to have them in one place with one goal, one mission to be able to do a sport that they really love is really cool. And talking even about that, relating it to gymnastics, you had recently an athlete who's now assistant coach at Penn State, who is who's continuing her gymnastics career and is pursuing an opportunity to be able to compete for Haiti. Myself, I have a personal connection to that because I'm Haitian, of Haitian descent
Oh,
myself. And
great.
so kind of following her journey is kind of cool. And even just getting other Haitians who may not really be in the sport a little bit more informed and involved. So then people of our ethnicity can really get to understand and maybe even pursue something that they really don't know. Because a lot of times when from what I understood growing up, sometimes your parents really didn't know of certain things, so you didn't get the opportunities to experience certain things, especially if you didn't grow up in a more dense place where it had a lot of your people. Like, if you didn't grow up in like New York, Boston area, or even in Florida where there's a dense population of Haitians, then you didn't really get the experience of
Mhm.
American culture. You were immersed mostly in probably your own world, or your parents didn't really get to know as much about other cultures. And so it's cool to see, athletes being able to have dual citizenship and to go and continue their gymnastics career post college and go pursue those opportunities. And I kind of bring that up. Can you kind of talk about how she was for your program when she was there, and kind of your thought process of seeing gymnasts being able to continue their career post their collegiate time and to be able to pursue competing for a country that may not normally get the limelight in the Olympics?
So Lindsey Brown is incredibly special. And so she was here because of COVID and an injury. We had Lindsey 6 full years. So I've been able to spend a lot of time with Lindsey. Just her person. I mean, I'm trying to think the most accurate way that her personality, the love and caring and thoughtfulness and that radiates off Lindsey, the wanting to make other people feel special. I mean, those are just like little pieces of Lindsey. And then you take into account her gymnastics. I mean, she is so competitive. And really, I believe, was one of the people that to continue to help elevate this University of Denver gymnastics program to the heights that we were at when we did finish in the top 4 in the country, and some of the successes we did have. And she won a, national championship on floor exercise. And one of my favorite things about Lindsey was there was no attitude there. There was no arrogance there. There was no, I'm better than anyone else there. It was a work ethic. It was a deserved work ethic. She came in she didn't take that, and I don't think I think a lot of people are able to do this now, but sometimes you hear those odd stories about you maybe have a superstar, but they aren't willing to put the time and energy and effort in the gym. That's definitely not Lindsey. She was the one who would put the time and the energy and the effort and in the gym and lead by example. And I think that's what made her success, so to me personally, so much more rewarding, that you can count on her being a mentor. You can count on her being a leader. You can count on her finding that. Well, we talk a lot in our program about that John Gordon piece of love versus accountability, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find the love? How do you encourage people, motivate people, find the best in people, get people to believe in themselves, have a positive environment, right? But all at the same time, there is an accountability to what we're doing. We want to try to be one of the best teams in the country, right? And to do that, there's a level of discipline and work ethic that goes along with that too. And how do you find that balance? And I just felt like Lindsey, as an athlete, leading from the floor is more powerful than any coach kind of leading from the sidelines. So we, obviously I'm thrilled for Lindsey that she is at Penn State and that she gets to now kind of consider what's her next steps in life, what's her dreams, what's her aspirations. She knows that I'll be there to support her no matter what that is, even if she's not there. We are really lucky. We have this year is the 50th Denver gymnastics team in the history of the program. And I believe Lindsey is flying back for our competition this Sunday. So I will get to see her, which will be really amazing. But I have kind of jokingly told Lindsey, she has family with us too. She can come live with us anytime she wants. But she's just an incredible, special individual.
And for you going into your 26th season and being now half of that time that it's been a program, you being at the helm or part of the program, can you kind of talk about your time being there for that long, and how special it's been, and what makes Denver so special for you that you really have been there for as long and said, hey, this is where I want to be and this is where I love being and I love kind of what we're building here?
Yeah, that's so funny. And your timing of the question's like so reflective, just because it's this 50th that we're celebrating right now. And this is again the 50th team. Well, first of all, it just means I feel old. Or I am old, so I don't know how you want to look at it. And I laugh because when I first got to Denver, the age gap wasn't so extreme between the student athletes and myself. And now obviously that is definitely not the case. But with age, I would hope would come some wisdom and some maturity and some and so I look back at some of the things that I probably did or said when I was a young, new head coach and just new in the role, and look back and I'm like, wow, that was silly. And hopefully over the years I have personally grown and matured. And that's one of like, everyone has their own personal values or thing. One of mine is, to have a growth mindset, right? And to really, it's one thing to make a mistake, but the goal would be to learn from that mistake and not repeat the same mistake over and over again. And so hopefully I have demonstrated that with myself and my career, that I can be, beneficial for our team in that regard. But Denver itself is such a special place. And I've been really fortunate in my career to be around some pretty incredible head coaches, and assistant coaches and student athletes, and just, truly, truly blessed. And when I came to University of Denver and I was out here on the interview, I didn't really know much. I knew about the academics. Denver has always had a really solid, incredible academic reputation. It's a medium-sized private school. They are, R1 research. They are, it's small class sizes. You're getting a lot of attention from the professors. These are not classes where you're sitting in with 500 people and it's taught by a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant, and they just genuinely don't know who you are. You're more a number than a name. And for some people that works, that's okay. I'm not saying it's, but this is what attracted me to Denver to begin with. When I came out here all those years ago and I watched these student athletes and I went to a class and the professor is calling them by name. And it's the full tenured professor teaching the classes. And that has held true my entire career. Of course, nothing's ever going to be perfect 100% of the time. I don't think that exists. But the caring that I have seen from the vision of this university, how they care about the whole person, how they want to build critical thinking skills that will be necessary for careers that we don't even know exist yet, right? And the willingness to kind of mentor these students, and listen to these students and guide these students and find these students opportunities, volunteer opportunities or internship opportunities, or whatever that might be. It is just a really, really special place, from an academic standpoint, to have those kinds of networks and connections. This is the kind of place when you ask a professor to write a letter of recommendation for you, they're not writing just some kind of blind letter of recommendation. They know you. They can speak to your learning style. They can speak to your strengths. And, they might not know all your gymnastics accolades. They're going to ask for that kind of information. But I really do feel like that's made a very, very big difference in the success we've had with our athletes going on to future careers and those kinds of things later. So it's a little familiar with that. Obviously got to learn a lot more about that when I was out here, way less familiar with the athletics. But I came out here and we don't have football. So we don't compete, in my opinion, we don't compete for resources with football. And I felt like gymnastics here was a place that gymnastics and hockey, and really now all the sports here at Denver, that's actually one of my favorite things over the course of the time I've been here, is to watch the growth of the athletic department as a whole. And you're watching hockey, who's always had a long history and tradition, but winning more national championships. But now you're watching men's lacrosse win a national championship, or women's lacrosse being in the top 4, or our, men's and soccer program being in the Elite 8 or whatever it might be. So it's been fun to be part of this competitive athletic department, but it also, because it is smaller and we don't have football, has a little bit more, to me, of like a family sort of feel for it. We're all pushing each other to be our best. We all want our teams to be the best they can possibly be. And I've really enjoyed that piece of the athletic department, that hockey and gymnastics have always held a very special place in the history and tradition here, long before I got here with gymnastics. Winning an NIAW title, winning, I believe, a Division II national championship. That gymnastics, I thought, here could be special, and not just, hey, you're just another sport in our athletic department. But we do care, we do have pride, and legacy and history in this program, and we do want this program to be successful. And that was what I was looking for, a place that where gymnastics felt special.
Yeah. And can you even talk about just the grind? Because you also mentioned a growth mindset and really the grind over time to really start to see the success and see where you guys are really competing for those top spots consistently, right? It wasn't starting off where you guys were, when you came in at the top tier, right? And even just being where you guys are located and not having a sport like football to kind of bring in some of those resources or even eyes and even probably student athletes, because a lot of times schools that do have football or some of these sports that are a little bit bigger, it's easier to bring certain student athletes, certain caliber of athletes, just because that sport just naturally kind of does that, right? Can you kind of talk about that growth mindset and the grind to just consistently just do the work to be able to start to really see the fruit of it now and being one of those top teams in the country in gymnastics?
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I would go back and say, I think we attract a very special student athlete here because it's really a student athlete that balances academic and athletic excellence. That is our goal here. How do we balance academic and athletic excellence? I think not having football, you're not getting overshined. And you have a chance. So, and I think there's something really special about that in terms of how our student athletes are viewed. Now, they work very hard for that. I am really passionate about not being entitled, work ethic. And those are really important things to me. And so, but there is an opportunity, you're not overshadowed. There is an opportunity to really be shining here and being well known and deservedly so for the work that they put in and the attention that they get and deserve. And that's shown, I think, through the attendance over the years too. I mean, we've been really, really fortunate. We compete in, for those who are not familiar, in, it's called Magnus Arena. And it is just an unbelievable venue. It's like the perfect size, it has energy, and when it's full and it's sold out, and it's an incredible place. And so even as we've seen the growth of the crowd in that through kind of the years, yes. So, I wish I could share tons and tons of stories, because everyone who I have been lucky enough and truly lucky enough to be associated with over the years has, given something, right? Imparted some kind of knowledge, given something. But this particular story stands out to me. So I'll share it for just the sake of it. We have had a longtime assistant here. His name was Carl Leland. Carl will also be back this weekend, which will be fun to see him. And Carl had done some coaching, I believe, at the University of Georgia prior to even coming here to the University of Denver. He moved to Colorado, was out of college gymnastics, which was coaching at a private club. And when I accepted the job here as the head coach, someone said, give Carl a call. And I did, and it worked out. And Carl came on as the assistant. I believe Carl ended up being here 10 to 12 years, maybe, as the assistant coach. And I was, again, a very young new head coach. And it was really Carl who said, Melissa, what's your philosophy? What's the philosophy? What's the philosophy? And it was really, I really credit him with the start of that piece of what you're calling the grind, but what I call like the kind of history of sort of the program. And that was when we really started to say, what are the things that are important to us? What are the things that are important to the program, to our student athletes, to the, and it ended up being all based on character, teamwork, and excellence. And so our philosophy to this day is to build a championship tradition based on a foundation of teamwork, character, and excellence. Now, I don't know if our student athletes can tell you the entire sentence I just told you, but can they tell you character, teamwork, and excellence? Absolutely, they can. And they hear that even as early as the recruiting process. And I really credit Carl for pushing me to have that. So that's a way to measure decisions. It's a way to look at values. It's a way to too. And so that's been part of the growth, really being thoughtful and diligent about this philosophy of character, teamwork, and excellence. How do we make it more than just words, but how is it action items behind those words? And we have over the years really grown in that area of character, teamwork, and excellence, and what that looks like as far as recruiting, what that looks like as far as academic and athletic excellence. But I remember a long time ago too, Denver, what's interesting is it's a sports town. This is an incredible place to live. Have you ever been out here?
I have
Okay.
a few times.
We have more professional sports than you know what to do with, right? Like we have the Broncos and the Avalanche and the Nuggets and just the Rapids. We have everyone. And then, so you can get plenty of sports here at a very high level. But I think what I love about this place is, one, the people. There is just something about the people out here that are, I really feel, have down-to-earth, hardworking, genuine, kind. But they love a winner. They love sports. They love following underdogs. And so that's also been really kind of fun for us too, as we have tried to continue to get the word out to support collegiate women's gymnastics and come see our team. There are people here who maybe don't know anything about gymnastics, but they are sports fans.
Yeah.
And so it's been really kind of fun to watch the success of those kinds of programs as well. But when you're a new head coach, and again, being here as long as I have, I think you think you're going to walk in and make all these changes and going to have this level of success right away. And, and we did have success. We made it, I believe, to the national championship, maybe within the first 2 or 3 years of me being here, but it has been a journey, definitely more than an outcome. And remember, I don't know that I was necessarily walking into they had incredible student athletes when I walked in this program. I remember thinking to myself those first few months or years of being here, I'm like, wow, the coach before me did a great job recruiting. I mean, I was really lucky to be around some really great student athletes. And I feel like everything in terms of the athletic department was in place to have, again, that vision of what they really wanted this program to be. However, you're not walking into a Power 5 program. You're not walking into my alma mater, University of Florida. You're not walking into, and so there was a lot of work to do. And I look back, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that Angela Duckworth book, Grit.
I have not.
She has a grit scale in her book. And I remember reading that book and be like, okay, well, I might be lacking in A, B, C, D, and E, but there's one thing I'm not lacking in, and that's grit, because this is going to take a whole lot of time and energy and effort and grit. But I also look back, and, I was so fortunate to be at University of Michigan as the assistant with Bev Plocky, who's just an incredible coach and has an incredible program, gave me an amazing opportunity before I came here as a head coach. But at Denver in particular, when I walked in, it was really, you needed to be competent at everything. Well, yeah. And so I'm not an expert in anything, but I do have knowledge in a lot of areas. And I'm really thankful to Denver looking back, although those first 5+ years, whatever they were, was exhausting. And I was doing things that I did not have to do in the past, or maybe would not have to do at a different school, meaning development, alumni relations, budget and finance, ticket sales. You can just, and in addition to coaching and recruiting, and there were so many areas. But I look back and I'm so blessed to have had that, because I don't know that I would have developed those skills had I not been forced to develop those skills. And so it gave me a knowledge that I think now continues to help me.
And can you talk about your staff that you have who helps kind of execute your philosophy and the vision that you guys have set up at the University of Denver, and kind of even talk about what really drives this specific team of this 50th year to really pursue the goal that they have for this season that they're currently in?
Yeah, I am. When you talk about blessed and surrounding yourself with people who are better than you are, I mean, that just, I can't say enough about that, right? Like, I am lucky enough to have that. I have that in my associate head coach, Lena Skaveka. have that in my assistant coaches, Stephen Hood and Mia Sundstrom, but I have people around me and athletic. I mean, Denver is supported at an incredible level. I have people, our director of sports medicine, our nutritionist, our sports psychologist, our strength and conditioning coach, our director of operations. I mean, I'm surrounded by some people who are just, like I said, I can have a baseline of knowledge in everywhere, but are experts in their area, right? And so blessed with my staff, and really truly lucky because they all in their own right could be their own head coaches. They all are. And what I'm most proud of is, yes, their expertise, yes, their technical ability, yes, their knowledge, of course, right? But what I'm really proud about is they care. They care. They care about the program as much as I do.
Yeah.
And that is really pretty special and fun to have, right? Like, as the head coach, you feel the responsibility for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. And it's hard to explain unless you're sitting in the seat what that feels like. But to be surrounded by people who want the best for the student athletes, academically, athletically, as a whole person, want them to be well-rounded, want them to have success when they go on to the next part of their life. But honestly, for a staff who also I feel a great responsibility. Are these young women and our student athletes, they want success. And our job is to put them in a position to have that success, right? And so even athletically, helping them reach their potential, putting them in a position to be successful. And I'm just so blessed that I'm around people who I don't have to ask, hey, what time are you coming? Like, where are you? What time are you? Like, their work ethic is they can match the work ethic with the best in the country, and their caring and their passion and their investment in the program. And one of the most important things, that they are clear in the philosophy, right? Again, it doesn't mean everything's always perfect 100% of the time, but we are all on the same page, that character, teamwork, and excellence matters, right? And that they share that vision and that philosophy with me.
And what are their roles in the gym? And even what are their roles for the team in regards to emotionally or kind of motivationally or any of those types of things? And can you even talk about your other support staff that you might have and how they contribute to your program?
Yeah, I always have thought one of Denver's strengths is the support staff. One of Denver's strengths is the investment that people have made in this program to be to have the success we've had. And this is more than just a paycheck. I mean, this is more. People have cared and have been invested. And I think you just don't always see that across the board from a complete standpoint. We have one of the best nutritionists in the country. So we're dealing with someone who talks about, immune system health and blood sugar level and metabolic efficiency and recovery foods and, the best kind of snacks to eat, and and food to eat on the road, and pre or post kind of meals. And we have just high performance and sports psychology individuals, again, talk about fully committed, that when we talk about team building, that there's action behind that. How do you build trust and respect? How do you work together as a team? One of the reasons we've been successful at Denver, I think, is, sure, we've had some phenomenal athletes, and I'm not going to, downplay that. On the flip side, we don't really have Olympians or national team members. This is about we, not me. And the reason we are successful is the passion and investment that our team cares, and they want that success for their teammates, for the university, for the athletic department, for each other, probably more than they want that sometimes for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that collective toughness and that teamwork has made such an effort. And that's due to the high performance specialist and the sports psychologist working, those team building things, but working things like visualization, focus, whatever kinds of positive self-talk, wherever we are on the scale of those kinds of things. Our director of sports medicine is probably one of the best in the entire country in her skill set. And we are really fortunate that sometimes people will reach out to her and ask her, hey, what modalities are you using? How did you rehab this injury back? And she's been instrumental in finding, collegiate women's gymnastics. You have to be smart. We're competing 13 meets in a row, right? And they're not 12 years old anymore. And so how do we find that balance of building confidence and consistency through consistent, prepared, and quality training, right? But not crossing the line where you do so many numbers that these athletes can't walk anymore. Do you know? And she's just been instrumental in finding that balance of how do we prepare them and work again on that confidence and consistency, but also make sure we're keeping them as healthy as we can possibly keep them and giving them the appropriate amount of recovery. So, I mean, we just across the board are so fortunate in our support staff and that kind of holistic model that I think we've taken from the beginning. So Linus does vault and bars in our gym. Stephen and Mia do floor, and I do balance beam. But I would say as a head coach, I'll always obviously be looking at and overseeing everything. But I think one of the things that's really important for our staff is for me to give them a level of autonomy too, right? Like they are great. They are experts in their area. So I might ask questions. We might brainstorm ideas. I think that's one of the great things about what we do at Denver. Like, hey, what do you think? You know, like, where can I help? How can we be better? What can we like, and that we're willing to be sharing that information, working together for the best of the entire team and not just our particular events that we're on, right? But for me, also giving them a level of independence and not micromanaging assignments and those kinds of things. But I can do that when you have trust, right? And I can do that when you can be patient and realize this is a journey and that we're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger as we continue.
Yeah. And I know kind of mentioned about your support staff and how awesome they are. And so sometimes with the sport, there's things that happen, some injuries that happen. And I know some of them that you guys had to experience. And I remember watching one recently kind of live in an Achilles tear at Metroplex. Can you kind of talk about how your sports staff has really helped develop even just the knowledge in gymnastics to help these athletes to either avoid some of these injuries, but even how to properly rehab and be able to come back into the sport and still be able to compete at a level that they competed prior to that?
Yeah, so I'd love to say that I have something to do with that, but I'm not so sure how much I have to do with that. You know, every sport, well, one of the things I think is important to remind, you know, our team or any team is athletics has injuries. That's part of the nature of athletics in general, right? Then you're going to break down sports in general. Gymnastics has injuries, just like every other sport has injuries. There is an appropriate level of risk taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why our strength and conditioning coach, who is phenomenal, and who I have never been around a strength and conditioning coach who I'm going to say comes to our practice 4 days a week and sits and watches our practice 4 days a week. The level of communication with her and with Linus and with her and our staff in terms of, you know, making sure we're not repeating certain exercises or overdoing a body part, but that we're doing what needs to be done for sports specific gymnastics, right? But that we're also working for injury prevention and prehab and rehab, or that, you know, opposing muscle group set strength or energy systems or whatever it might be. And so I think there is a level of fitness and strength that needs to be there to keep these athletes safe, right? To the best of your ability. So I think at what Denver, the philosophy we sort of take is we just want to do everything we can to minimize risk. It doesn't mean you're going to prevent it. Things are going to happen. And you can't be so conservative that you're never willing to take a calculated risk, right? Like, but I think knowing what that risk is, where are the numbers? How many times have they done the skill? Did they compete it in the past? How many times did they compete it successfully? Where are we? You know, like, and so I think we're really thoughtful about, you know, what that looks like and make sure that skill selection per athlete is the best it can possibly be. And maybe that means we keep athletes training and all around. Maybe that means, you know, your shoulder wasn't great. We're not going to continue on bars. Do you know, like, and so making the best decisions to modify things to do what's right for that athlete. So they're not good on everything, but not competing anything, but they're great on where they can excel. And, but I really say that we're incredibly lucky to have Julie Campbell, our director of sports medicine and our full-time gymnastics trainer, the one I was mentioning. It's really her. She is the one who just is phenomenal at building out a plan. How are we going to get this person back to sport, right? Like, and I really think of her with an athlete who also won a national championship early on for us, Nina McGee. And Nina won a floor exercise national championship. And Nina had a surgery, 2 actual surgeries. She had some injuries prior to coming to DU. And then we had to deal with them when she got here. And it was really Julie who really rehabbed her in a thoughtful way, working with the orthopedics, working with the physical therapist, but day after day, bringing her back from walking to jumping to high level performance for Nina to come back after those 2 surgeries and win a national championship on floor. So it's really that team and then they tell us or we ask them, what do you need from us? What can we do to support you in that regard? And so I think it's a team effort all the way around, if that answered your question.
No, I think it is. It's good. Because I think it's really important sometimes for people to know, if there's listeners and viewers who are who are listening, and that might be something that they're thinking about. Because in part of the recruiting process, from athletes that I've kind of walked alongside, they think about those things of facilities. What does that look like? Because sometimes they may be coming from a facility that has everything like soft and pits and resi, and they want somewhere like that. Or they might be coming from somewhere that doesn't have that, where they've had hard landings and they have, either having to stack the whale or resi mats and in order to make things soft, or kind of makeshift ways to make things soft. And so that's something that they look into, but also understanding and knowing what other resources really will help support. Because I think if a student athlete, a parent, or a coach are not looking at those things, especially the support that could have, because again, in our sport and in any sport, there is risk of injury. What would it look like for me if I were to? What kind of support do I have? And asking some of those questions in the process, and understanding, hey, this is what this university offers, maybe because of what degrees, or even if they have people who come there for certain research or certain doctorates or even master programs that really are dedicated to certain areas like this, that really helps a student athlete with recovery in different sciences and different things like that. And so making those things a little bit more accessible, at least the information in a platform like this, so then people can be like, all right, you know what, at Denver, I know it has a facility that will really allow me to train at the highest capacity that I possibly can, and with the safest opportunity. And if something were to happen, I have a great support staff that will be able to help direct me in the right place and put me in a position to not have to be like, all right, I have this injury, now I have to be done, but work my way back into continuing the career that I love so much. And I've dedicated a lot of times my whole life to get to this point and be able to be a contributor for my team as an athlete, or even if it comes to that point where I can still be a part of the team and be a support system and be even just a testimony to someone else who may one day experience something that I have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying all that. And again, we're really fortunate. We do have an amazing bio, we have incredible physiology labs and all kinds of things across campus, and biomechanic labs and things like that. And what we don't know, I think this is one of the great things about Denver. We can take and share our knowledge. We've participated in Achilles surveys and studies, and we've worked with Dave Tilley, and we've done things like that. So it's also about being open-minded, and it's also about teaching the athletes it's okay to communicate, right? Like, I am surrounded by, and again, really incredible young women who do want to compete, who do want to be out on that floor, who are doing what they love. They're not trying to get out of anything. They're not trying to get away with anything. They want to be out there. And so sometimes if they tell us, hey, something's kind of bothering me, their worry will be we'll pull them from practice, or we won't let them compete. And to just kind of reassure them, that's not necessarily the case, but the sooner we know things, the better, right? The more communication you have with us, the better. So maybe instead of something lasting 4 weeks, it only lasts 2 weeks, right? Or maybe we find cupping or dry needling or whatever it might be, or treatment that's going to give you some relief or work best for you. Or maybe it does mean on that particular day, we don't do a flight series on beam, but we give it a moment to recover and we get back at it the next day. And so, working with them on terms of the communication and our ability to listen to what they're saying. Again, now I'm not going to say everything's perfect 100% of the time, but I also think we realize where we are in the bigger picture. This is about academics and athletics, right? This is about, we're really fortunate here that I think we all share a passion that we want these young women to realize their athletic potential, but they're also career and academic potential too. And we've been really fortunate. We just had an athlete this past summer who did an internship for NASA. And it was an amazing experience. We have several doctors, nurses, physical therapists, out there right now. And so, even through injury, there is a way to refocus thoughts. Okay, you know what? Maybe this isn't going to happen right now, but let's turn your attention to this class and for this moment in this major that provides you this opportunity. And so how are we finding a balance for each student athlete that continues to motivate them and puts them in a position to be successful?
Yeah. And talking about even being successful with NIL now kind of being something that is an opportunity for athletes. And I think in gymnastics, it hasn't gotten to the point where, in other sports where programs can almost buy athletes, but it's really an opportunity and a resource for the athlete if they have certain endeavors that they want to pursue. Can you talk about if there is a NIL collective that is at DU and what it may look like, and if there's athletes that currently are, and can prospect student athletes either come in with those things, or and is there even education? Because I know each state has different they have different rules and legislation on these things and what they can do and how they can do it. And with Denver really growing in population and more, people are coming, which probably will bring more businesses out and stuff like that, and a huge airport, there's probably a lot of opportunities. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's such a obviously hot topic, relevant question. That's the landscape right now, right? What does it look like for name, image, and likeness? What does it look like for Alston? What does it look like for separate subdivision? What does it look like for conference affiliation? So you're definitely asking the right kinds of questions. Again, really fortunate here at Denver. We do have something called influencer. So we do have the ability to partner our student athletes with local businesses in our local exchange or whatever that might look like. And with influencer comes a level of education. So there are workshops and education that goes out to our student athletes in that regard. We are very fortunate. Our athletic director, his name is Josh Burlow. He is, I believe, is in his second year here. He is really positioning Denver and I think a really thoughtful and strategic way. I am very impressed with his knowledge, his networking, his ability to get involved even in a national conversation in terms of what's going to happen with these court cases. How do these court cases, antitrust case, whatever that might be, employee types of cases, how does that affect certain schools? How does that affect other schools? And having those conversations and being part of that. So I feel really confident with Josh that he's going to be able to position Denver strategically. I think we will. There is, just as of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, so this is new even for me, there are some NCAA is now kind of putting out some additional bullet points on what things could look like, effective dates starting August of 2024. What does that look like? What does that look like from an education standpoint? Are universities going to be able to participate in setting up those contracts and or opportunities? Are they not going to be? What kinds of volunteer disclosure opportunities are there going to be? There's all kinds of things that are now really just being put out. So I think at Denver, we will continue to grow our name, image, and likeness opportunities here off what we already currently have. But I think that Josh will be pretty strategic as he sees how the landscapes unfold either through Congress, which I'm not sure much is going to happen on that front right now, or through the court system. And what does that look like in terms of what we are and aren't permitted to do, and then take action associated with that. So sorry, I don't know if that like sort of directly answered your question. I do think there is some momentum here and there is a buzz. Now, I'm also going to say Denver is in, at least within the gymnastics program, but I feel like in the athletic department at the university, and in some respects in the community, it takes a special person to be here, right? This is probably going to be about being genuine and grounded, and again, balancing academics and athletics, and looking for recruits and prospects that want to be part of something special like that. And that being the foundation of where we are. And then anything else is icing on the cake, and is going to be great, but probably not going to start with, hey, we're going to pay you X, Y, and Z to come here. And then secondary, it's going to be about your education or your your gymnastics. It's not going to be, it's going to be education, academics, and athletics as the primary focus.
And can you talk about the fan base that you guys have and you guys have built, and how they travel with you guys and how they support the team?
Oh my gosh, that's been one of just my funnest things. We have been so lucky over the course of a year. We're really lucky in the state of Colorado. It's us and Air Force Academy. And boy, hats off to Air Force Academy. First of all, they do a phenomenal job. But I always laugh because for me, Air Force Academy gets every good grace you could possibly get. Those young men and women are protecting our country. They get a whole nother like level of, they have a different, I mean, of course they want to be successful at their sports, and they are, but their primary focus is to keep the rest of us safe. And so, but with that said, the Colorado club gymnastics community has been incredibly supportive to the University of Denver. And they come and they bring all their kids and they help fill up our stands and they promote our sport. And I hope that our athletes, and this is one of my things with our athletes, that they are role models, right? That they never lose sight of that. They are inspiring that next generation, right? That they are out there, and that their body language, their attitude, their effort, their sportsmanship does matter. And that these little girls and little boys are looking for that, looking at them, right? And it's inspiring them to continue working hard in their club. And so we're really lucky that we have that kind of support. But I would say it's gone a step further these last few years. Our parents, our season ticket holders, our alumni base, our donors, all of those have really just stepped up and shared, I feel like, a little bit of a common vision and energy with us. I think it helped. We've hosted the Big 12 Conference Championship 2 years ago. Then last year we hosted the NCAA Regional Championships. So we are now bringing in some of the best teams in the entire country. Our fan base is exposed to those kinds of teams. And that kind of energy. We are really lucky in our in-game event management that we have stepped up the energy and excitement as far as, and I think our fans feel that. And so it's low, relatively speaking, it's low cost family entertainment. I mean, is it still, I always tell our athletes, you have a responsibility, right? People work hard for their money. And people work hard to bring their family to a meet and then pay for parking and pay for concessions and pay for the leotard they want to get, and whatever it might be. And I feel like there's a responsibility to make sure, not just through a score, but through a attitude and effort and an energy and a commitment, that is important for our athletes to show our fans and friends and alumni and donors and supporters, that kind of thing. But it is a really fun time at Denver as we continue to get closer and closer to selling out our home meets, as that attendance continues to increase, but just the energy and the excitement. And I think the fans that have been with us for a while have also seen the growth of the program. And I think they share a kind of pride in that too, which is really fun.
And how did you become a fan personally of the sport of gymnastics? And what I really mean by that is, when did this sport really become something that you started to do? And kind of talk about your journey growing up in Florida and going to the University of Florida. And when did even the thought process of, hey, I want to continue this to where I want to coach gymnastics. And you mentioned you had coached at Michigan, and I've seen that you were also a student coach when you were at the University of Florida. Can you kind of talk about going back from a little kid starting gymnastics to where you're at now?
Yeah, I can't pinpoint like per se a moment, but I am going to tell you, my mom and dad enrolled me in just a little tumbling class. I think we all have similar stories to that in our gymnastics journeys, and little tumbling class kind of, right near my house. And that was it. I started, learning those forward rolls and backward rolls, and just, I remember really it wasn't a gymnastics facility. It was some panel mats. But that was like sort of the end. I'm like, wow, this is fun, like that, where you are in your body and that flipping upside down and that air, like you don't put it in words like that when you're just a little kid, but like, and I think that's kind of what started for me, that just love of gymnastics, right? What you can do with your body, right? Where you are in space and time, and truly the flexibility and the grace and the strength and the beauty and the artistry of what goes along with collegiate women's gymnastics, and gymnastics in general, right? Just so
Yeah.
fun. And so I think those were all things that have continued to attract me. And then I just was really fortunate to be again around my club coach, Tim Rand, who passed away several years ago. He was one of the best in the entire country. Really learned everything I know from Tim as an athlete, as a coach. And I always laughed. I feel like I was one of Tim's maybe a little bit more guinea pigs at the beginning, with while he was also learning and growing. He was so young at that point too. But I don't think I think it's okay for me to say I was never a phenomenal gymnast. I had my strengths, and I think I can credit myself enough to say, I had some areas that I was good in, but I was never great. And that's okay. I think that's actually what's made me, I would say I'm a better coach than I was a gymnast.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's just having to have an understanding and appreciation, because it didn't maybe always come natural to me, or was a little bit harder for me, or I had to work really hard for what I did have, or and that's mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so
Yeah.
maybe those things ended up being again a huge blessing in disguise for me, in terms of the coach I am now and how I am as a coach.
Yeah. That's cool. And kind of to wrap up our conversation, can you kind of talk about what this 2024 season looks like for you guys, and kind of what you guys want to accomplish, and how your season has started so far to kind of launch you guys into that ultimate goal?
Yeah, well, so I'll start with the incredible teams that are out there in the country right now. I mean, wow, right? Wow. This is what we all wanted. This is what we've all been working for as an association, for 25, 35, 45 years, long before I ever got here, to have this kind of parity, to have this kind of competitiveness, to have this kind of, and I just think it's such a credit to the sport. I think that's what makes it so exciting right now. I think that's why the popularity on social media of gymnastics is through the roof, because people can see all these teams are competitive. So I just give my colleagues out there and the other student athletes at the other schools so much credit for everyone pushing the level of competitiveness that makes us all better, which is really kind of fun to be doing, right? And so I'd say for us at Denver, obviously, when we talk about athletic and academic excellence, that's in our philosophy. The part of athletic excellence we talk about is continue to increase our 985s and above, right? Like that's where we need to be, but to continue to improve on our own performance. I mean, it's one of my, and every sport has its different things, right? We're not in basketball, so we don't have like an offense and a defense. We don't watch videotape of other teams, like we do watch videotape of ourselves. But right, we have to focus on the controllables. What can we control? You can't control what another team does. You can't control what you're going to score, right? But you can control your own work ethic, quality of turns. You can control your own attitude, energy, self-talk. You can control being prepared in the gym. Do you know you can control competing, well, to an extent, competing with freedom because you're prepared? And so I think for our team, it's really about, I'm really trying hard right now for this particular team to keep them in the moment. To like, obviously we want it. We were at nationals last year. We want to be back at nationals. We want to improve on our performance at nationals. We want to be back in that top 4 in the country as we were in 2019, right? We want to continue with our All-Americans and or opportunities for potential national champions. But I also, for some reason, feel this team, every team's different. You have to kind of know your team, right? And I think for this team, it's going to be important to really feel like, are we improving on our own performances? Are we getting that 1% better every time out, whether that's practice and or competition, right? And if we can kind of stay in, we have a very, very, very tough schedule. I'd say we have one of the toughest in the country in terms of scheduling. And so for us, I think it's a little less about win and loss, a little bit more about continuing to, maximize scoring potential. But are we getting a little bit better, so that we are peaking at the right time? And for us, I think that that's going to be important.
Yeah. And what are some nuggets you want to leave with the listeners and viewers about yourself, about your program, or just anything to kind of inspire the viewers and listeners?
That's such a great question. I wish I would really, I really would have to think that out. I would probably lean towards saying, anything's possible. When I came to Denver, people were like, Melissa, why are you going to a small, medium-sized private school? And it's not quote unquote a football school that has football exposure on television. You're not going to be able to win at Denver. And I have really enjoyed trying to prove that wrong. Yeah. I've really enjoyed finding our niche and saying, you know what? Yeah, we can. And it is possible. And so, is there something out there to that thought that I don't think you just hope something happens and then it happens. I think it's way more complex than that. But if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to grind and you're willing to stay gritty and resilient and determined and persistent, and show that perseverance, I do think anything is possible, and that, you should go after those dreams and go out. And that's what we've continued to kind of do here. And then I think the other thing is, especially for the younger, newer head coaches that are out there, it took me a while to find my groove. Like, instead of trying to be someone else, be the best version of myself, right? Like, be genuine in the leadership that I have to offer and be comfortable and confident in that. And that just takes some time and growth and maturity and wisdom. And so I say, those are be the best version of yourself and go after those dreams.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time out of your season, out of your day to really talk with us or talk on the podcast, talk to the listeners and viewers. We really appreciate it. And I love your insights on how you kind of think. And even I can see how analytical you are and how you process information. And even like throughout this conversation, you're already answering questions that I didn't even need to answer. So I really enjoyed that. It made my job a little bit easier, which I'm sure that's what your staff and your student athletes would probably say the same. So I want to wish you guys good luck as you guys continue throughout the season and achieving those things. And the rest of you, thank you for tuning into this episode. And please follow Denver's 2024 season, and even looking into their university. I'll link their information below. Again, thank you, Melissa, for being on this podcast. I'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely.